This secret skill can transform the way you tackle challenges, master new abilities, and achieve your goals, yet almost no one talks about it. It's not talent, it's not intelligence, it's learning how to learn. Mastering this one skill is like unlocking the cheat code to success in anything you pursue. We can guarantee this skill is a game changer, and we're here to show you exactly how to master it. The struggle of learning. Let's be honest, when we hear phrases like learning how to learn, it doesn't exactly sound exciting. But think about this. Every major accomplishment in life, whether it's getting a degree, starting a business, or picking up a new hobby, requires one common foundation: the ability to learn. If you can master this one skill, you can master almost anything. We've all been there. You start something new. Maybe you want to learn guitar, try coding, or finally master Spanish. In the beginning, you're pumped. You buy the tools, watch a few YouTube videos, and dive in head first. But then, it gets hard. Your fingers hurt from pressing the guitar strings, or your code won't work no matter how many times you try. You feel overwhelmed, discouraged, and before you know it, you've given up. The problem isn't that you're incapable, it's that no one ever taught you how to learn effectively. Think about school, where teachers give you subjects to study, but do they ever teach you how to study? Probably not. Most of us are stuck using outdated methods like cramming, copying notes, or endlessly highlighting textbooks. These techniques might help you scrape by on a test, but they're terrible for long-term learning. The science of learning. Here's where things get interesting. Your brain isn't a sponge that soaks up information, it's more like a muscle. When you learn something new, your brain creates connections between neurons. These connections are like pathways, and the more you use them, the stronger they get. This process is called neuroplasticity, and it's how your brain adapts and grows. But here's the catch. Just like with muscles, your brain only grows when you challenge it. Think about it. If you go to the gym and lift the lightest weight over and over, you won't get stronger. The same goes for learning. If you keep rewatching the same video or rereading the same notes, you're not challenging your brain. You're just going through the motions. So then, how do you learn how to learn? Well, we're going to simplify it in just a few simple steps. Step 1. Be specific about what you want to learn. One of the biggest mistakes people make when learning is setting vague goals. You might say, I want to get better at photography, or I want to learn how to code. But what does that even mean? Let's use photography as an example. Instead of saying, I want to get better, break it down into something actionable. I want to learn how to shoot in manual mode and edit photos using Lightroom. Now, you have a clear target. When your goals are specific, it's easier to measure your progress, which keeps you motivated. Specificity also helps reduce overwhelm. If you try to tackle everything at once, it's easy to burn out. By focusing on one small, specific goal at a time, you build momentum and confidence. Step 2. Ditch passive learning for active learning. Here's a common trap: thinking that watching videos or reading books is enough to learn something. That's called passive learning, and it's about as effective as trying to learn how to swim by watching people swim. Active learning, on the other hand, means engaging with the material. Test yourself, solve problems, apply what you've learned. If you're learning a language, don't just read grammar rules, try speaking or writing sentences. If you're studying coding, build a small project instead of just following tutorials. One of the best ways to solidify your learning is to teach it to someone else. There's a saying, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. So find a friend, a family member, or even a pet, and try explaining what you've learned. It might feel silly, but it works. Step 3. Harness the power of speed repetition. Here's a harsh truth. Cramming doesn't work. You might remember the information long enough to pass a test, but a week later, it's gone. That's because your brain needs time to solidify new information. Spaced repetition is a simple yet powerful technique. Instead of reviewing something all at once, space it out over time. Review it the next day, then 3 days later, then a week later. Each time you review, your brain reinforces those neural pathways, making the information stick. Think of it like watering a plant. If you dump a gallon of water on it all at once, it won't thrive. But if you water it consistently over time, it grows strong and healthy. Step 4. Embrace mistakes and feedback. Let's talk about failure. Most people hate making mistakes, and they see them as proof that they're not good enough. But here's the thing. Mistakes are your best teacher. Instead of shying away from failure, lean into it. Ask yourself, what went wrong, and how can I do better? Analyze your mistakes carefully, as they often contain the most valuable lessons. On top of that, actively seek feedback from others. Whether it's from a mentor, a peer, or even online communities, constructive feedback can help you see things from a different perspective. People who've been through the learning process can offer insights that you might not have considered, pointing out areas of improvement that will fast-track your progress. Step 5. Optimize your environment. Believe it or not, your environment plays a huge role in how effectively you learn. If you're trying to study in a noisy, cluttered space, your brain has to work twice as hard to focus. Create a learning-friendly environment. A clean, focused environment helps your brain stay in learning mode and allows you to get into a productive flow state. Even small tweaks, like using noise-canceling headphones or having a tidy workspace, can make a huge difference in how efficiently you learn. Find a quiet space, keep your desk tidy, and minimize distractions. If you're easily tempted by your phone, put it in another room or use apps that block notifications. You can also use tools like the Pomodoro technique. This involves working for 25 minutes, then taking a 5-minute break. It's a great way to stay focused without burning out. Recreating the example. Remember the example of learning Photoshop that we talked about earlier? Let's try and recreate it with all the steps we learned in this video. Let's imagine you've decided to learn photography. Start by setting a specific goal. Instead of saying, I want to be good at photography, narrow it down. I want to learn how to shoot in manual mode and take sharp photos with good lighting. Next, you dive into active learning. You could watch a video tutorial on how to use manual settings. But instead of just watching passively, you pick up your camera and follow along. When the tutorial explains aperture, you adjust your camera's aperture and snap a few shots to see how it changes the depth of field. When it covers shutter speed, you experiment with capturing motion. You're not just consuming information, you're applying it immediately. As you practice, you use spaced repetition to reinforce what you've learned. On day 1, you might spend an hour experimenting with aperture. The next day, you review aperture briefly, then focus on shutter speed. A few days later, you revisit both while adding ISO into the mix. By spacing out your practice, you allow the knowledge to sink in and prevent yourself from feeling overwhelmed. Mistakes will happen. It's inevitable. Maybe your first attempts at manual mode result in overexposed or underexposed photos. Instead of getting frustrated, you analyze what went wrong. Was your shutter speed too slow? Did you forget to adjust ISO for changing light conditions? Each mistake gives you valuable feedback. You also seek constructive feedback from others. Maybe you join a photography group on social media or attend a local meetup. You share your work, even if you feel self-conscious about it. A fellow photographer points out that your compositions could benefit from following the rule of thirds. Another suggests adjusting your white balance for more natural colors. These insights help you improve much faster than if you were working in isolation. Finally, you optimize your environment for learning. You set aside a specific time and place for photography practice, say an hour in the golden light of the evening. You minimize distractions by turning off notifications on your phone and focusing solely on capturing the perfect shot. Over time, these small, deliberate steps transform your skills. What started as fumbling with buttons on your camera evolves into confidently capturing beautiful images that make people stop and say, "Wow, how did you take that?" Think of learning how to learn as the ultimate life hack. It's the skill that makes every other skill easier to acquire. Whether you want to excel in your career, pick up a new hobby, or simply be better at adapting to challenges, this is your foundation. The next time you set out to learn something new, don't just jump in head first. Take a moment to plan your approach. Be specific about your goals. Engage actively with the material. Space out your practice, embrace your mistakes, and create an environment that supports focus. Because when you learn how to learn, there's nothing you can't achieve. If this video helped you unlock the secret to learning better, Hit like and subscribe to the channel for more content curated to make you the best version of yourself.